Hey, this is Carl Gelf with Lie Heavy, formerly of COC. I'm in the Skull, Legions of Doom, Patriarchs of Black. I'm just happy to be here. You got to check out Heavy Galaxy, man. That's where it's at.
All right, Heavy Galaxy Show. Matt and John back with you guys and gals for another episode this week. No guest on this episode that we're doing, but we're going to be talking, of course, about a lot of what's going on in the heavy rock world. John, what's going on, dude? How you doing, bud?
Just rocking away, man. Licking the wounds from our loss of Ozzy, obviously.
Yeah, man, of course. Unfortunately, it's been a dreary last few days. The Prince of Darkness himself, obviously one of the pillars, if not the pillar of this heavy rock community we know of. Ozzy passed away at the age of 76. Really not much to be said about Ozzy and his impact, man. Obviously, I think it's pretty much speaks for itself, you know. I mean, and of course, you know, guys like us growing up, not just, you know, not just being influenced by Black Sabbath, their music, but really Ozzy, obviously, when we were growing up, man, was just, he was the guy. I mean, it's amazing, you know, from him getting booted out of Black Sabbath and then becoming even bigger and bigger than Sabbath, you know, was after he got kicked out. And just, yeah, man. So, you know, just, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say, man. Obviously, just rest in peace, Ozzy. He was the man.
Yeah, I mean, he was the front man and for the most important band ever in the history of music.
Sure.
Some would say the Beatles, which of course Beatles is what inspired him to initially, you know, want to do music. But their approach, style, their melding of jazz, blues, and churning up those amps, it doesn't all go to Ozzy. But Ozzy was the man singing those songs. So we, you know, the general public identifies with Ozzy, particularly when it comes to solo stuff, right? Because Black Sabbath, you really get down and dirty. Ozzy was awesome frontman, period, in a sentence. Tony Iommi wrote the majority of the songs and instrumentally kind of created it, and it with Geezer Butler, who wrote the majority of the lyrics, or at least got the lyrics going, and then Ozzy could kind of modify it. I mean, Ozzy's melodies and harmonious style, it just, he was just so fantastic. But like you said, when that solo thing happened, which is such an interesting backstory, because you know, Arden was their manager during his Black Sabbath year, and this guy was a massive part of the totally. What was his first name? Like
Don Arden.
Don Arden. Yeah. And yeah, for folks that don't know, his daughter was Sharon Arden.
That's right.
Who later became Sharon Osbourne. And when they got married, I just saw this the other day. He gave her Black Sabbath as a band to manage. And she immediately went and took him off his label and put him on and shopped him for a bigger label or something random like that. But, you know, MTV, it happened right at the perfect time. As much as, you know, the first two solo albums were amazing, right? Like for many of us, that's our entry point. And those albums are iconic, period, in a sentence. And it happened right, you know, when Dio was doing just a little bit after that. And both of them were just on fire.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, Ozzy did, you know, after Randy died tragically, you know, did Speak of the Devil. And Matt, for me, I'm not ashamed to say this. I discovered Black Sabbath through Speak of the Devil.
Well, I think a lot of people did. You know what I mean?
You know, yeah. I mean, you know how it is.
Yeah.
I told Brad Gillis, who I met not too long ago at Night Ranger over at Count's Band, and actually stopped him and told him that. And he kind of looked at me funny. I go, seriously? Like, you know, I was 15, 16 years old or whatever it was when I finally got my hands on it. And it was like, that's what Black Sabbath sounds like? Because I had no idea. Our station, as far as I remember, didn't even play Paranoid or Iron Man.
No, man. I think Paranoid was the only song I remember hearing on the radio as a kid by Sabbath.
But you're a little younger. And
yeah,
so
but I've been
like heavy music really moved up in that 82 to 90 range. It just everything. It showed that heavy metal and hard rock could be the king of the world.
Totally,
Everyone's
man.
like, oh, we've always been on the fringe. I'm like,
but look, I was a little younger, but I was, in '82, I was 7 years old. So I was so you might think I wasn't listening to me, dude. But if you saw it,
cool.
Yeah, I mean, my dad had a whole, that was a drummer for one. He was in a band. He had a whole closet full of vinyl where I thought everybody had this growing up. Like, wow. Every family's got a whole closet. No, when I had friends later on, we were teens, come over and be like, "What the fuck, dude? Your dad's got this collection." So I grew up with this stuff. Like, I mean, music was
heavy stuff.
He liked heavy stuff.
Oh, you're lucky.
No, he didn't like Sabbath, but he was he was of course grew up with like the guys in Sabbath. He grew up with the Beatles and all those kind of bands in the 60s, the Byrds, stuff like that. He was huge into Bob Dylan, all that stuff. But as the 70s came, my dad was into Van Halen, he was into Kiss. So he was in not so much Sabbath, not like the
lucky
obscure pro. I was very lucky to grow up with all that stuff.
Zero,
huh?
Like he never listened to music. Had zero interest. Okay. We would be in the car and sports radio the majority of the time. I was definitely a big sports guy. I played 3 sports for many years. Baseball was the primary one, and it was a massive part of my life. I'm still follow my main teams in baseball, football, and college.
Using sports too.
I mean, I'm still dedicated that much. I've lost a lot of dedication though. Sports because music is just taking it over. But I got lucky enough that I talked my mom into doing Columbia House Records.
Oh yeah, I did that.
And
who didn't? we all stole money for that too, all of us.
I did a few times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I did. Me and her would split like what bands, and she was picking like the Carpenters and the Letterman, all this crap that, and we got Captain and Tennille together, But that's when I started snagging Journey and Foreigner, and I already knew about Zeppelin some, and I knew about AC/DC because my buddy's brother had Dirty Deeds.
Okay.
And looking at the album, let's do it. And it was like, oh, this is different.
Yeah.
Like it was just,
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the things too, people maybe don't understand. That's why this is such a huge, I mean, not only just because it's Ozzy, right? I mean, Ozzy, there's only one Ozzy, there's only going to probably ever be one Ozzy. But like you said, metal and this heavier stuff, this is when it literally was starting to take hold within the mainstream. And like you said, Ozzy was one of the first ones solo. You had Judas Priest eventually came in, this around 83, but these bands eventually, they started though, it started to become a radio, not like it is today where you don't hear anyone on the radio. It started taking over where like I was part of that. My, age group was one where I was growing up in the heart, especially when MTV came out and you had Twisted Sister videos and all that stuff. That's when it just, in Motley Crue, just blew up, 83-ish, 84-ish, especially,
But I mean, in the fire got lit was Quiet Riot with Mental Health, which had a great video to go with it.
Oh, yeah.
And Def Leppard, Pyromania.
Absolutely, Def Leppard.
And and it was like the first time a metal had ever gotten to #1 and all this other stuff. And that kind of got things going. And they had videos as well. And so I think it just kept building. And Ozzy, as much as the Randy Rhoads stuff did not benefit really from video. I mean, there's nothing memorable.
Nope.
And then Bark of the Moon came out, and there was some. I mean, it got what a cheesy video, but it got some. It was right as things are getting a little bit more, and then Ultimate Sin propelled him.
Yeah,
and I loved Ultimate Sin. And
I did too.
The video, remember he was like J.R.
Oh
Ewing.
God, he's got the hair, the big hair. He was
look at J.R. Ewing at part of Ultimate Sin, like a cowboy hat around the pool. Just And it's this, Shot in the Dark was such a visual video, because you had like Dweezil Zappa and a few of these other younger people jumping in a car to go have a good time, which, I was in high school when that happened. And then it was just like, yeah. And the song was so infectious. You know who wrote that song?
Which one?
Shot in the Dark.
I think I might have heard about this. I don't know.
I can tell you.
No, go ahead.
Phil Soussan.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Which is the gentleman I know here in Vegas.
Sure.
He moved here, I don't know, 5 years ago or something like that. And so, or maybe even 6. So I've talked to him about, he was literally the primary writer to that. And there's, of course, been a scuttlebutt
with Jakey Lee and Sharon and everything.
Credits and everything else, which,
yeah.
Sharon is just a bulldog on that kind of stuff.
She's a business,
Bob Daisley or whatever his name was too.
Bob Daisley. Well, yeah, I got no.
But yeah, Phil wrote that song with Ozzy, but I think he was the primary writer of it. Yeah,
interesting.
I mean, Ozzy was not a writer.
No, he wasn't a writer. No, he wasn't.
That's the thing is, but man, he was a performer. Energy every time.
Oh man,
frontman wildness. Drugs, alcohol. I mean, obviously the antics with bats and doves and
everything
on the Alamo and all that. But I mean, that's what builds an enigmatic frontman, which is something, like a Jim Morrison that is a little bit. It's going to be missing in today's society. It seems only rappers can do that really wild stuff now.
Well, they're allowed to. Exactly. Well, that's the thing with Ozzy, man. He's so, I mean, listen, he's arguably, and I would probably say he's, I mean, yes, he doesn't write his lyrics, but let's take away that, most of it, but let's take away that. He's got something though that very little, if anybody has ever had. And I always say this, to me, there's 3 things, right, that make up a one-of-a-kind artist, especially a vocalist, right? Obviously one is the voice, and that, as we know, he's got unique, great voice, right? I mean, that's no question about that. I would say the second one, it's that to me, a great singer has to have is the showmanship. And Ozzy, I mean, one of the things I've seen him do that I probably haven't seen any of the vocalists do live is really just captivate and unify an audience. I mean, when he's up on that stage, there's no one's looking anywhere. You're just boom, Ozzy. The whole crowd is. He can bring a whole crowd together. He's so just. You said the energy, the passion is just. It's insane. I never see anybody do it like that. And 3 is the charisma and the character, the personality, the Ozzy persona. And obviously, like you were just saying, with just his stories, with the drugs, just the men. You said the Dove stuff. But regardless of that, just his personality, he's a lovable person.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so, I mean, if you think about, and I want to go through this a little bit with you. I mean, if you think about it, if you go through the history of rock and metal, name one other vocalist that has all 3 of those. We can go
Robert
through
Plant.
Okay. But Plant said he had the voice.
But he did not have, I was trying to think of this day, what was the dirt on Robert Plant, right? And really wasn't anything that controversial, was it?
No.
Like Jimmy Page was the one,
he had the
Mr. Crowley's Castle.
The Crowley stuff, yeah, exactly.
Why the fuck you would do that, but okay. And then, some back in the day, teenage, chicks, which obviously in this last.
Well, he had the looks and the voice, but he didn't have the charisma. Yeah. He didn't have the charisma.
Plant, I mean, the thing that Robert Plant had that Ozzy didn't was he had sex appeal.
Okay, well, that is true. One thing Ozzy didn't have is sex appeal. But in terms of, that to me, I guess can go along with maybe the showmanship. I mean, let's be honest. Do guys really care about the sex appeal? I don't really care.
If you think about it, girls never liked Black Sabbath to begin with.
No, not girls.
If you look at stats, it's most girls are clueless. They're all sad about No More Tears and Mama, I'm Coming Home.
Sure.
Then Black Sabbath, the word,
But, I'm
yeah,
talking about, you know, in terms of.
But Led Zeppelin was a little more varied in their sound, and the visual Plant, who usually didn't have a shirt on, maybe a vest, and he was, you know, taller and
Sure, blonde hair,
very
blonde hair.
thin, and you know, you do the whole thing with the bulge where you know, it's weird, that visual thing with the dick. I mean,
Yeah.
sure, it works for, you know, there's some weird thing with women at times that, you know, that can work, but Plant, definitely that was something. But as I've said before, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, the creators of all hard and heavy rock, and Black Sabbath with a nod to Black Sabbath at the top.
Yeah. Because I mean, but I mean, I would say the only one that maybe was close to being having all three like Ozzy did was maybe a Freddie Mercury. You know, he had the voice, he had the persona, the stage, and he had a bit of charisma. You know, now, like I said, I mean, not that, you know, again, we're not, let's keep away the sex appeal. Well, I get. Well, look, I'm trying to take away the look part, because to me, that's not something you can. That's not artistry. That's something you're born with.
But I mean, that's important.
Oh, it is.
Nonetheless, I'm not a Queen fan, so
I'm not a huge Queen fan either. No, I'm not either.
I recognize that he was able to sing an operatic style of rock and roll, not necessarily.
Well, he's also proficient as a musician, creating music too. You know, so that's what I think made, you know, Freddie Mercury unique. Yeah, I'm not a huge Queen guy myself either. I'm just, you know, I was just thinking of you know, famous singers. You know, Mick Jagger obviously had the swagger, he had the persona, but he didn't have the voice. He didn't have a great voice. You know what I mean? Mick Jagger does not.
Well, he had a style.
Well, again, there's plenty of guys like Mick Jagger
familiar to you and was pretty good. What one thing you missed on like needs three things? You said voice, but I really want to add right behind that, or a dash.
Sure.
It's the creation of beautiful melodies within your vocals. And you know, I think in a little bit we're going to go over some bands we think, you know, have some great singers nowadays. But I think that is a big key to why Ozzy, you know, did so good, is you can have a lyric, but you still have to sing it a certain way. And there's guys that can hit notes all day long and all that such shit, but the creation of a song is And Ozzy and Robert Plant, without a doubt, and Robert Plant, I think, even wrote lyrics too. Those guys did this thing vocally. And I mean, like Jim Morrison, I'm way late to Doors. I couldn't stand him in high school.
I still
can't. Started smoking weed in college. And the rest is history. I listen to him as much as anything nowadays.
Oh, interesting.
And he is a study in being a rock star.
Well, he's again, showmanship. Yeah. Showmanship. You could even say charisma him, but he doesn't have a great voice. He doesn't have a great voice, though. I don't know.
No. I think that he wasn't hitting high notes, but his solid baritone. I mean, man, I don't know. I mean, I'm a deep voice guy. You know, I'm not.
I am too.
Not Henley or anything.
Sure.
But I think he had a really good voice.
I'm talking about, you said hitting notes. That's what I'm referring to. Of course, he's got a unique voice, you know, but I'm talking about hitting notes, you know, being able to go out there. And if you said, "Hey, Jim, go ahead and sing a version of this song," and I mean,
but he would never do that.
He would never do it. So that's what I mean. I mean, again, I'm not taking
a contrarian.
You know exactly.
And,
so I'm not.
You listen to The End or Riders on the Storm. I mean, those are amazing vocals.
Well,
and again, it's isolated down so that you can, you know.
But he was not a pure singer. You know what I mean? Like, he's an artist. He's a frontman. Look, David Lee Roth, we all know, not a great voice, right?
Yeah.
Hell of a showman.
Hell of a showman. People love his show still.
You know, Dio, amazing voice. Amazing. Great personality in terms of a great guy. But is he a guy that was going to unify the whole crowd like someone like Ozzy could do, run around like that? No. I mean, and Dio's Dio's probably my favorite vocalist of all time.
I got to see him twice in high school, Matt.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I saw Last in Line tour
Oh,
and
that was the album for
Dokken was
me,
opening
man.
up from Tooth and Nail album.
Okay, nice.
That was like second or third concert ever. And then I saw Dio front row.
No, that's awesome.
My buddy, for people that are old, which a bunch of you are that are listening,
Mhm.
I checked the demographics. My buddy Paul Desjardins, that I grew up with, he went the Ticketmaster and got there in the morning before it even opened and snagged tickets, skipped part of class. Now, I'll never forget in Mrs. Cool's class, which we were in the same class together. It was an English class. And he is outside the class waving to me and told me to come outside. And I'm like, so I go outside and he tells me, it's just, you're like walking on air. You're just like, you get nervous. Like, what's this going to be like? Like down there with all those people versus
like that age.
Seat high up. And it was, I mean, Dio looked at me and did the whole signs and all. I mean, it was insanity. And those first 2 albums by Dio, I'll put it up against those.
Oh, yeah. Holy Diver and Last
Third album was all right. Fourth album was all right, but
those first 2
noticeably
were special. Well, because no Vivian Campbell after those.
The labels were doing their thing, and I would prefer Ozzy's solo after that. I mean, I put Dio. I like his first 2 albums better than Ozzy's first 2 solo.
Agreed.
But
after that,
big difference. It's definitely Ozzy.
Oh yeah, I agree.
He was just that whole MTV thing helped so much, and his outlandishness, and his wife was amazing at.
Oh yeah, she made him. She made him who he was. No doubt.
And she owned it. You know what I mean?
I agree.
And
no doubt.
She knew how to work the system.
Oh yeah.
She was young at the beginning too, and they went through a lot of turmoil. But I got to get. I mean, she gets so much hate. Well, I get it, but
at the same time, there would be no Ozzy without him. There'd be no Ozzy.
In the farewell thing.
Yeah, of course.
That's her idea.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, she definitely.
Knew the urgency.
Yeah.
And she wanted to do that for him.
Yeah. No, of course.
And that is poetic.
No, and it is. And you could sit there and hate her, all you want. But the other thing too is, those Ozfests, man, were amazing to keep the music, rock and metal in the forefront of the American culture and everything. And it was her. She's the one that all those. I mean, like I said, you could say, Ozzy, but bottom line is Ozzy was a mess. Everyone knows it. He never would have gotten to the heights he did without her. Yeah. So I agree with you. She has to, as much if you don't like her, you got to give her credit for doing, not just even for Ozzy, but like I said, doing for metal in general, for rock and metal, keeping it at the forefront. I mean, she's a big reason and part of that. I totally agree with that. Yeah,
and I missed all those Ozfests. I lived in areas where there weren't any. I lived on an island in South Carolina. So I missed all that, and then I moved to Orlando, and I don't think we ever had an Ozfest when I was there.
Probably not down there, yeah.
And I just missed it, and it was just like a big bummer. But yeah, those kind of things were really important. And what's interesting is I'll flip something here in a weird way. I was thinking about this today. The Ozfest and stuff like that, they really helped elevate super heavier stuff too.
They did.
But now their super heavier stuff is more popular than regular heavy rock, and they don't do the same.
No.
They don't elevate and bring bands that, are really solid, good, heavy rock. There's no help from anyone, hardly, yet. Now, can this Black Sabbath thing or this Ozzy thing wake people up to what Black Sabbath sounds like instead of perception? And will young people... be like, instead of listening to Crazy Train or No More Tears for the 90 millionth time, listen to a War Pigs or Fairies Wear Boots, where they can immediately hear instrumentation and what the real art of rock, besides writing a song that's catchy, the actual artistic part of having these different instruments all come together and collaborate for this one masterpiece. And we're in a world where the number one most popular music in the world, it's like 70 or 80 billion dollars bigger is hip hop and rap. And they don't use instruments at all. And the composition's based on somebody coming up with some lyrics or words to rap. And then someone working on a computer with a program, which eventually you would think that would just transition to AI because it doesn't involve guys with guitars, doesn't involve a guy on bass or drums, almost ever, like 99%. And so I want people to get this in their head. Rock and roll is authentic, and it's done by people doing music together, playing real instruments. If you're into rap and EDM, you're on the side of AI, I would say. That because you're already into like it's computer generated and you're okay with it. Who cares? As long as it sounds good, I can move around, man. You know, it's our music is real and authentic, and that's why country is so big right now because they have songwriting and the music.
Well, country's big because they popped it. Well, they popped it up and they blended it with hip hop. I mean, that's why it got so bigger than it used to be. Country. They popped up a little bit. Let's not get carried away, but listen, there's that Shabuzi guy or whatever. I mean, it's completely. They're trying to completely blend that, and they're using the same model, the same hip hop model they're doing now with country. I mean,
think about it, like Run DMC,
because country's all solo artists now.
Guitar riffs, obviously with the Walk This Way and all that stuff. And Beastie Boys had Led Zeppelin songs, and so there's always been the lifting, stealing, and there's a whole conversation behind that. Right. But I mean, it's not actually people in a room working together.
Well, because
not just individual and and of course we know the management side of things. It's a lot easier for labels and management companies to work with one dude and his manager.
Yeah, well, there's no artist development anymore. Remember when bands or artists would get signed back in the day? I mean, if you look like even the 70s, I'm just going to use this, Sammy Hagar, for instance. You know how many albums he had gotten before, like, I Can't Drive 55, that VOA album actually hit?
Leaving Hampton was pretty big, though.
It was
It has three
sort of.
On the radio.
It did. No, it did. I mean,
heavy metal.
But yeah, heavy metal. But again, it really wasn't top 40 wise, though, not so much until VOA. But he had.
I Can't Drive 55. I mean,
but even Stan in Hampton, I think that was still his like fourth record. You know what I mean? So these guys had like we're talking minimum like 3 records at least to do something. Even in the 90s, you had 2 minimum. Then towards the mid to latter part of the 90s, it was just
Nirvana, one. Their first, Nirvana's first album was really cool, but it was raw and not hardly anyone knew about
it. Well, remember, though, those were on, that was the 90s was different because it brought in, that was the dawn of the independent label. Before that, there wasn't many independents in the 80s.
There were a lot of labels.
But there wasn't a lot of independents. Remember, but the 90s, what was happening was the major labels. Yeah, well, Sub Pop, because they were like the farm team. The major labels started realizing instead of us wasting all our money on, because they didn't know anything. They didn't know they didn't know anything. So they used the indies to be sort of their scouts. And then so the indies,
that's how they work. Yeah. They don't really develop sounds.
No.
They just capitalize on it.
Exactly. Yeah. Bingo. But in the 70s and even the 80s, they did develop the sound, but they realized it was more cost efficient to let the indies now develop the sound. We'll just go and pick them off them. And which, listen.
Well, there was the old rock world, which, was an immediate blowback, if you will, during our Gen X for many of us, of hair metal, which we did not want to hear it anymore. We were older, edgier, life was not that easy.
Sure, it was a new decade, man. Yeah,
and it got really cliche for many men. Now, some men, they just like what's on the radio, and it's been validated, and and that's it. I talk to people.
Well, it just got saturated. Everything. I remember the day when I was into hair metal. Obviously, I was a youngster. I liked hair metal. It was on MTV. So this is kind of like. MTV was like another radio station, but visual.
Yeah.
And I didn't really care really at the time. I didn't even know. I just figured, guys, the way Rat and these guys dress up, this is how Rockstar, Motley Crue, is how they dress, right? It wasn't though until I remember literally sitting down. I remember my living room putting on MTV. I think it was around 90 or 91. And it was that one band, they were called Tough. I don't know if you remember them. It's horrible. And there they were, 1991, and these guys look like it was still 1987. And I'm like, no, another one of these bands, like, because by that time there was other stuff that were trickling in, like some punk or like Social Distortion on a video or Ball and Chain, and little by little they were introducing different things on MTV.
Yeah.
When I saw like Saigon Kick and Tough and these bands, I was like, no way, I am not into this, man.
Slaughter.
Well, yeah, exactly. Slaughter and stuff.
Poison.
Exactly. So
Poison is the one that really
they cheesed it. Yes, absolutely.
So much.
They bubblegummed it. Yep.
You got all these other pretty boy.
It was a downfall.
I mean, listen.
It was.
I live in Las Vegas. I went to Counts Vamped pretty much every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Friends with so many women, but that's all they knew. That's all they knew and loved was that stuff. And of course, there's probably psychological reasons for it, but that music was made to expand the audience, is what the label's on.
Totally, absolutely.
And what that meant is we don't need to do music just for a bunch of white guys or whatever, or dudes. The more we do these lighter stuff, the chicks will gravitate to it. And it worked like that, but it worked against them because a whole bunch of us said, fuck off.
Well, that's
we're going to listen to college music and immediately got REM and stuff like that, which is technically different. But when you mind expand in college, and you give shit a chance.
You do
REM and early U2 was great, and the next thing you know, I had the Pixies and Sonic Youth, and then Blind Melon, and then Soundgarden, Alice. I mean, I got Alice Jane Soundgarden early. It was the one introducing it to most people, and alt rock. It turned in from college rock to alt rock, and next thing you know, you had a show on MTV. I mean, it was amazingly exciting. It was like hours in some weird way, and I'm like, I was done, dude. I wouldn't listen to Dio anymore because I only liked couple three albums.
Yeah, well, you want stuff new. I mean, it's just anything. It was evolving. Now now what's happened? Remember too. That's what we were talking about earlier with metal with Ozzy in the early '80s. The thing about it was new. So because this was a new style and a new type of music, I mean, you had Van Halen that set off. What it was the '80s and the hair metal. The sunset was just everyone trying to be Van Halen. It was just like everybody before that, or Van Halen and like Zeppelin and AC/DC, pretty much. Those three.
A lot of history behind our music. A lot of bands played parts along the way.
Yeah.
But that could be a whole show by itself. But
I
get what you're saying, and it was great times back then.
So the
buzz happen today, odds are no, because of the devices that are held.
Well, and it's not new. Remember the rock and metal. That's
maybe it is new to a lot of people now.
Well, it's new to their ears.
Like Sabbath is new to almost everyone, man.
Well, sure, it's new to their ears, but it's not a new sound. It's been done. I mean, look, we saw that with.
But grunge. A lot of people don't even know that sound.
Yeah, but just look at the '90s. Look at the '90s grunge. That was obviously that got big because a lot of people didn't know the '70s sound. They were so used to MTV with '80s. So this is fresh. But it wasn't a new. I mean, grunge at least was new because they took the '70s and they made it their own. No one can take anything anymore now and make it their own. You know what I mean? That's the problem.
I don't give a shit as long as it's good. I'm one of those people.
I don't care either.
Other people like, I need to hear something fresh. I'm like,
no, I don't care.
Well, I don't want to hear something fresh that's not good. And of course, now I sound like some old person.
Sure,
who won't even listen to any of the stuff we like because they're like, well, I can just put fog hat on. I'm like,
I know,
You know what I mean? So I don't need to hear more, computers involved in my rock and roll. I don't need to hear, I like some different instrumentation added in. Quite frankly, I do. I joke that I don't really like banjo and all that, but then there's a song like the newer Familiars album out of Canada, where I think there's a little banjo in one of their songs, and they got like other things, steel guitar and all. I mean, I love that kind of stuff.
Sure, if you mix it
I'm not a big saxophone guy, but for God's sake, people have put that involved with stuff, including Germ. But
I love
and Villagers of Iron Anita City and Temple thing. There's an immersive part of that psychedelic experience that I think a lot of people are getting into. But for me, it doesn't. New to you and me is different than new to the general public and the normies.
Yeah, but yes.
Know much. They know this.
Oh, of course.
Very little. Like
no,
this,
you're right. No, you're right. And they'd have to go back and look and dig to maybe find that stuff. I mean, we listen. One great thing about the stoner heavy rock scene that had sprouted up since the mid to late 2000s was it also when I started listening to these bands, I also started getting into a lot of the proto metal. Now a lot of that stuff we didn't know about because that wasn't it wasn't put on, it was not put on radio or nothing. There was a small window there in the 70s, like we were talking to Wino about, like he was telling us, bands like Budgie and so forth. Bands like that were those guys grew up in that, and I have some friends too right that age. But I didn't hear that stuff until later
Metallica, they introduced us to it.
Well, they did too. Exactly. They did a good job. Yeah, it's really cool.
I loved that album.
Yeah.
It was like new songs to me.
Like,
totally. Every one of them. I never heard those songs in my life.
Totally. Diamond, Diamond.
And I was like, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's the other thing too. I mean, we can go on about this all day, but right, you don't have. We could say too. One of the things the bands these days, the established bands, the one thing I understand why they don't do it because financially it just doesn't make sense, but they're not bringing out new bands to tour with them. Now some are. You got a band like the Black Crowes have done a great job doing that, bringing us Dirty Honey and bands like that, right?
Yeah.
They've done a phenomenal job with bringing these up. And you said that new band the
band Feel.
That's it, the band Feel. Yes. So they've done a great job doing that, but most don't because financially the promoters are like, no, it's we want to get another name on this bill.
You know why they do it? Well, you're exactly right, Matt. But another reason they do it is because they can negotiate buy-ons, which is another revenue flow for the band and its management and whoever else is involved with the tour.
That's right.
So these random bands buy their way on these tours, and most of them I'm never impressed with. And I constantly compare them to my groups of bands and be like, it's too bad.
Yeah, it is.
But Elder lands with Tool, and King Buffalo landed with the Sword, which Philly isn't massive, but at least they play in front of hundreds of people.
Yeah.
So,
it's about who's got the passion, man. Who's into music for real.
The apple didn't fall far from the tree.
It's Trev's daddy, he's big as shit, it's Bill Church.
My dad was always in bands. People know my dad from Montrose, Sammy Hagar, Van Morrison.
We used to be such a tight unit, and we would always do things together as a unit.
The infighting just got worse and worse and worse.
Didn't actually seem like we were living up to the hype, I guess you could say, in like a business sense.
But everybody in this band gets along really, really well. We're four brothers. We really are.
The rock and roll cliche. Yeah, we were a rock and roll cliche, shit went down and stuff was done.
Like there's no bands here, man.
Wasteland. Like it's where local bands go to die.
They said they did not want me in the band.
Eric was the driver and the glue behind that band.
It was a struggle in the beginning with the business, but now it's basically paying off for all my dreams.
For me, it's like me up against all the Van Halen kids.
He's quest-driven. His dad got cut. It's like Luke Skywalker.
We know our clock is done, our time is up, but we just do it because we like to do it.
SoCal Heavy Jam, a bunch of friends throwing down on a great stage with an amazing sound system.
If I stopped and I got out of the band, I think I'd really still enjoy putting it on.
One of the premier scenes for heavy rock in America.
There is a group of knuckleheads that like this stuff, and I think we're having a freaking blast doing it.
In ways, it's more fun now, I think, because we don't do any of the stupid shit you did back then,
Why do I do it? Because, the easiest answer, because I love doing it.